Welcome to Learn Cantonese, Mastering Conversation for Beginners. This lecture would be about first meeting. Now, overall, I am going to start off with a normal speed Cantonese conversation. Most of these is going to be with two person, which is Mr. Ho and Mr. Lee, just to limit my my need of imagining new names for these conversations. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you a English version of these conversations, and then I would go through it with you slowly of the entire conversation. Read alongside with me. We actually got some English alphabet phonetic representations of each word. Don't stress on those phonetic pronunciations because those are just my most accurate kind of representation, and I don't think those are proper pronunciations, but I'm trying my best into doing it. And then we're gonna break down each sentence and give you a more in-depth analysis of what is going on. Also, there's one more thing, is if you have watching this video on YouTube or on my website, and if you have a mobile device, it is highly recommended to download it from Google Play. The app is basically of a similar name. You could find the link in the YouTube page and in the same page as this video on my website. Okay, so now let's get started. So this is a conversation in Kanji. Now, in this conversation, there are actually three people. Now, it's first it's Mr. Ho, in which case it is Ho Xin-sang. So Mr. Ho is called in Cantonese Ho Xin-sang. Now, there is also Mr. Lee, in which I have mentioned before. Mr. Ho and Mr. Lee would be our main characters of all of the conversations. And Mr. Lee in Cantonese is called Lei Xin-sang. Now, there is a third character in this conversation, and it's Mr. Chan. Yeah, so much for my imagination. So Mr. Chan in Cantonese is called Chan Xin-sang. So now I hope that you actually got the pattern of what to call other people with, let's say, Mr. and their last name by now. But if not, I would actually describe it more thoroughly later in this lecture. Now, in this case, on the first go through, I would just go through the whole conversation without stating who said which. Okay. Now, if you see here, you could see that you got those colons. Those colons are actually meaning that the dialogue. So the left side of the colon means who is saying it, and the right side is the actual dialogue. So this one I am not going to mention who is saying which, but I would when I am going through with you later in this course. Okay, so let's get started. 李先生，你好，好高興認識你。你好，喂阿明，點啊你？你太太好嘛？佢好好，有心。佢食完藥好咗好多。我而家有個會要開，不如下次再傾。冇問題，再見，拜拜。So, I have just finished that first meeting conversation in Cantonese, and my guess is you probably have no idea what I have just talked about, or what has this conversation is about, right? I mean, if you do, well, you probably don't take this course, right? Okay, so what is this conversation about? Well, first of all, Mr. Ho said to Mr. Lee, hello, Mr. Lee, nice to meet you. And then Mr. Lee said, nice to meet you too. And then Mr. Chan came in out of nowhere and said, hey Ming, how are you? How about your wife? How is she? Mr. Lee then says, she's fine, thank you. She felt a lot better after taking the medication. I have a meeting right now. Let's talk at another time. Well, seems right here that Mr. Chan knows Mr. Lee quite well. Okay, now after that, Mr. Ho and Mr. Chan both says no problem, bye. And then Mr. Lee ends the conversation with bye. So let's go through this whole conversation again. Read it with me. I would now go through this conversation with who said which, but all of them would be in Cantonese. You might not entirely understand right now, but it's fine. Just read it with me. Try to follow my pronunciation as much as possible. Then just relax. I'm going to explain everything afterwards. Okay, so start off with 何先生 said, 李先生你好，好高興認識你。Then 李先生 said, 你好。Now that's where 陳先生 jumped in and said, 喂阿明，點啊？你太太好嘛？ Afterwards, 李先生 said, 佢好好，有心。佢食完藥好咗好多。我而家有個會要開，不如下次再傾。Then both 何先生 and 陳先生 said, 冇問題，再見。李先生 replied with, bye bye. Okay, so let's break down each sentence and fully analyze what's going on. In this sentence, 李先生你好，好高興認識你。Let's do it more slowly again. 李先生你好，好高興認識你。Now in this sentence, it generally means, Mr. Lee, hello, nice to meet you. Um, and it's basically exactly translated of what I just said, in which Lei Xin Sang means Mr. Lee, Lei Hou well means you and good, but it's more or less general phrase in our culture, in a more formal hello when you are meeting someone. Actually, if you wanted to learn a more informal way of helloing someone, it's really easy because it's just an Cantonese pronunciation of hello, which is ha lo. Again, an informal hello in Cantonese is just ha lo. Now, the of course in the more formal way, like let's say when you're meeting a business partner, would more or less be lei hou, which is direct translation of you good, and then hou go heng means very happy. So it's basically a different way of saying nice, right? So go heng is happy, and hou is good or very, when you translate it to English. So hou go heng means very happy. Now, ying sik lei means to meet you. So in this sentence, if you want to read with me again, it's Lei Xin Sang, Lei Hou, Hou Go Heng, Ying Sik Lei, is more or less hello, Mr. Lee, nice to meet you. Now, if you want to use it with your friends or with your practice partner, it will be the name of your partner or the person he wouldn't talk to, and then 你好，好高興認識你. Now, let's talk about the Mr., Mrs., and the Miss, right? So you know that in English, right? Because we are speaking English, so you do understand English, right? Now you have something called Mr. and then Mrs. and then Miss. In Cantonese is exactly the same thing, in which Mr. is Xin Sang. Again, Mr. is Xin Sang. Mrs. is actually called Tai. Again, Mrs. In Cantonese is called Tai. And then Miss, when a lady is not married yet, it's actually called Xiu Jie. Again, for Miss, you would call Xiu Jie. Now, let's say a person called Mr. Smith, right? I know it's more or less in this case the Mr. goes first, but as you can see from our table above, last name actually goes first, not the Mr. So like let's say Mr. Smith, you would go Smith Xin Sang. So instead of the Mr. in the beginning, you put Mr. at the end. And same as Mrs. like Mrs. Smith, you would put Smith Tai, and Miss Smith would be Smith Xiu Jie. right? Also, another thing that's good to know is, um, like, let's say a name called Peter Chan, right? Now in Chinese, like Chinese names, last name actually goes first and then first name and then the given name. So in this case, well, of course, Peter Chan would actually not be called Peter. It's more or less their own Chinese given name. Like, let's say, okay, for example, Chiwa Ho, in English, in Hong Kong, he would be called Ho Chiwa, where Ho is actually the last name and Chiwa is the given name. Now, I want to introduce you to a verb that I really haven't introduced in the conversation yet. And it is I am called. In Cantonese, it's called ngo kiu. Repeat, ngo kiu. Where the first kanji in the kanji in the left hand side pronounced ngo, and the one in the right pronounced kiu. Ngo in Cantonese means me, and kiu in Cantonese means called. This phrase is actually very useful when you're introducing to someone, and you want to say what is your own name. So when let's say I want to say I am called Ben Lee, I would say Ngo Kiu Ben Lee. So it would be, I would use this first, and then I would say whatever my name is. So now let's look at this sentence. I would say it once again in Cantonese. Let's follow my my effort in trying to use phonetic in English to reproduce these sounds in the bottom line. Try to follow me. 喂阿明，點啊你太太好嘛？ So in this sentence, what's happening is he is saying that, hey Ming, how are you? How is your wife? So hey Ming in Cantonese is Wai Amei. Now, in this very sentence, Amei is calling that guy by its nickname. It's usually used between closer friends. So usually what happened is these nicknames are actually created by using the word a, which is the middle kanji in the first sentence, and one of the kanjis that's found inside the person's name. Usually the last one, but there might be exceptions. And for hey, in Cantonese we say why. Why? So again, this is very, very informal, and sometimes it's considered rude if you don't know that person too well. So unless you know him, I suggest don't use it. Now, the next one is how are you? Now, this is all very, very informal. So, and rather it's a bit rude to so in Cantonese, how are you is điểm lei. Again, điểm lei. So in this case, it's really hard to translate it word for word. So lei is you, and is really not not really have any meaning to it. It's more or less it's usually the supporting sound. I'll probably do a course later on regarding to these and o and all that, right? Diem is more or less for pointing or direction. Now the last sentence, 你太太好嗎? So how is your wife? Now wife, if you are talking about Mrs., you usually use one of those tai to tai, right? Like Mrs. Lee, you say 你太. However, if you're just pointing to words, like let's say your wife or my wife, you would actually add another tai to it. So you would say, if it's your wife, I would say 你太太. If it's my wife, I'll say 我太太. Now, 好嗎 is more or less is asking if people is well. So 好 means good, and ma is usually what we use at the end of a question, especially in our written language. In what we say, not so much, but in this case, we would use ma. Again, it's not really a rule. It's more or less just sounds good. But without ma in this case, it wouldn't make sense. Just letting you know. So if you're asking, like let's say a friend, if they're well, then you would ask 你好嗎, where 你 means you, 好嗎 means you well. Now let's look at this reply. So in Cantonese, it is 佢好好有心，佢食完藥好咗好多. Now the English translation of this is she is fine, thank you. She felt a lot better after taking the medication. Now let's break down each and every part to see what's actually going on. So the first one, 佢好好. So 佢 actually means he or she. We don't have a masculine version or a feminine version of this. In Mandarin, in the written language perhaps, but here in Cantonese, we don't have it. So he or she, we use 佢. 好好 means fine. So if you have listened to my other videos, you would notice that 好 means good. So 好好 actually means good, direct translation. But in a more meaningful sense to you, it just means fine. So 佢好好 again means she is or he is fine. The second part after the comma is 有心. Now it's by no means it will be translated to thank you, actually, in English. So 有心 direct translation would be have heart, where 有 is have and some is heart. Now, when you are actually thanking someone for an offer or present, you would actually say 多謝, 多謝. Now, 多謝 is actually the Cantonese version of thank you. So what is 有心 then, right? Are you trying to confuse me? Well, no. When people are asking for are you doing well in this, or like how is your body doing, is your illness is okay, it's more or less thank you for your condolences. So in this case, that's why we would say 有心 or have heart. Now, the last part would be a little bit long. So in Cantonese is 佢食完藥好咗好多. Now, in English, it would be translated to she felt a lot better after taking the medication. So let's break it down into like individual words now. Again, 佢 means he or she, as I've told you just a little bit earlier. 食, the second kanji after, is the verb to eat. So 食 is the verb to eat in Cantonese. 完, which you can follow on my not so perfect English pronunciation in the bottom of the row. 完 means finish. So 佢食完 in this case is she finished. 藥 means drugs or prescription. So 佢食完藥 meaning she finished the medication. The last four, as you can see, you see two 好 again, right? Now, the last four is pronounced 好咗好多, means she felt a lot better. 咗 in this case is just a particle in which I'll describe it in other videos, but in this case, just take it for granted that we need to use that for felt a lot better, right? And the last kanji on the right hand side, 多 means a lot. So 好咗好多 means a lot better. So follow me in this sentence also. 我而家有個會要開，不如下次再傾. Now the English counterpart for this is I have a meeting right now. Let's talk at another time. As you've probably seen in my beginner's course, 我 means me or I. Again, follow the bottom row for the English phonetic representation of these kanjis. 而家 means now. 有 again, it's a verb, to have. So it means I now have in total. When I say 我而家有, it means I now have. Now the next verb, you see G-O. It means that we prolong the O sound. So it pronounces go. And next the next kanji means pronounced wui, and it means meeting. In this context, it means other things in other contexts too, but this out of this the scope of this course. So what is go wui? In you might have some question as to what is go, right? Now go is basically a thing that you need when you are numbering a particular object or noun. Like this would be used for, like, let's say if you say two person, right? And person is yan. In Cantonese, you would say 兩個人. So, and then like let's say two pencils, two TVs, you would have other words to use when you are describing the amount of these nouns or objects. I would thoroughly describe it in another video. So the next one, next one after void is you, and you means need in Cantonese, and the kanji before the comma is called hoi, and that is open in Cantonese. So in this case, if we trace back to yao, the Y-A-O-U, yao go hui you hoi means have a meeting. Now in Cantonese, we have the meeting is open. It's not attending to. It's just a way that we say. So when we say have a meeting, we would say 要開會, right? So in this case, that's why we have the word hoi, which is open in Cantonese here. Now let's look at the other part of the sentence. The other part would say 不如下次再傾. Now the two kanji after the comma 不如 goes together, meaning how about. Ha ti, again, it's more or less reading together into one context, and it pronounces ha ti in Cantonese, means next time. Joy, meaning again in Cantonese, and king is actually chatting in Cantonese. So in this very instances, 不如下次 means how about next time, and 再傾 is to chat again. So the whole context would mean let's talk at another time. So now let's look at the important vocabs right now. So as you can see, these are the kanji, and I'm not actually going to show the English representation anymore, but you can also follow me, right? So first, starting from the top, 而家 而家 as now. So 而家 is now in Cantonese. 有個會有個會 means have a meeting. 有個會 means have a meeting in Cantonese. 要開 in this case, again, as I described before, this is more or less to go to, but in Cantonese we use open when going to a meeting. That's why we have need open in this case, which is 要開 in Cantonese. Next one is 不如 this is how about in Cantonese. Again, it's 不如 下次 is next time. 下次 and lastly, 再傾 means chat again in Cantonese. Now let's look at this sentence. The sentence says 冇問題再見. Notice in here it's actually a direct translation. 冇問題, as you can see before the comma, these three kanji actually means no problem, where the first one, 冇, means no, and the second two kanjis are 問題, which means question or problem in Cantonese. So that is a direct translation of no problem. And then the last two kanjis after the comma is 再見, 再見, which the direct translation is actually saying see again, where 再, as I've said earlier, means again, and 見 means see in Cantonese. So if it's direct translation, it'll be no problem, see you later, or see you again. Now, as I have said before, 再見 means see you again. Now, we also borrowed bye-bye from English, and we pronounce it just the same, which is bye-bye. Of course, we replace it with a similar sounding kanji for this. Again, you would see a lot of, well, not a lot of, but there's a certain number of words in Cantonese that are borrowing from English, and I would probably have some examples later on in this course for you. So this is the end of the lecture. I know that it's a lot of materials that I've covered. However, I encourage you to review all of the materials that I have presented until you are sure that you have mastered everything. It is also highly recommended that you buy a Cantonese study guide or textbook to work alongside with this course, to optimize your time in learning this language. And if you wanted to support us, please buy it from our Amazon storefront in our website. It is of no extra cost to you. However, part of the money would be sent to us as commissions, and in which those money we could use it to create and support us to for creating more materials for you guys. Now, also, if you are ready in mastering this course, and you know for sure that you know everything, we also have a quiz for you. If you are viewing this on the website or in our mobile app, you can see it in the description of the video in the app or in the website of which you're viewing this video right now. Or if you are viewing this from YouTube, I've also included the link to our quiz in the YouTube description found below. I hope you do well, and I hope you could master this language. Thank you for looking at this course, and have yourself a great day.